George Carlin had a skit where he talked about my stuff is stuff, but your stuff is crap. At what point in time in our lives do the things that we own gain relevance and then also in turn lose that same relevance?
Welcome back to WizNugs. Today we're talking about stuff. How much does your stuff own you, and how much do you place value on things that ultimately don't matter?
I always liken this to when there's been a death in the family. And I realize that that's like a weird tangent to come down to.
I'll go with you on this journey.
Right? So a lot of times we see that we start placing importance or emotional value on things when there's been a death in the family. And somebody's passed, and now there's all of the things that they've owned, and it needs to be divvied out because we just can't throw it away. That belonged to my mom, or that belonged to my dad, or whatever.
Or if I throw it away, then somebody's going to be upset because they miss it.
And then what did you do with that thing? Well, no one wanted it, and so I decided to get rid of it. Oh, how could you do that? Don't you know that's when dad did this, or that's when mom did this, and that's why we have this thing, and you can't remember how important it was?
Don't throw away mom's TV guide collection.
Right? That's a good one. I like that one. But the point being is that it's just a thing. And it's a thing that somebody owned. Yes, we don't actually value the object itself. We value the person that it belonged to. And it reminds us of that person. So when we see the thing, it's not that we cherish the thing. We cherish who it belonged to and the memory and maybe the circumstance that's around the gaining of that object.
I've got a personal story on this that my dad passed away about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And he had a comic book collection from when he was a kid.
Okay.
We're talking like original number ones of all of the old stuff, the Avengers and like Iron Man before he had his own comic book when he appeared in Tales of Suspense.
Okay.
And, that was the title at the top, and it was featuring Iron Man. That sort of thing.
What was Thor? Tales to Astonish?
Journey into Mystery.
There you go. Anyway.
I know because I've got one hanging on the wall.
I know that you have several of them. I've seen them, yes.
That was an experience that I shared with him in my youth, was him teaching me to appreciate and care for the comic book collection. So I got a kind of a unique experience. I got to read X-Men, I think number 2 through about 12 or 13 in the original 1960-something printing. And I had to, as a kid, learn. He wouldn't let me do this when I was little. I had to be old enough and responsible enough to stop and like lay down on the floor or on a desk that was clean, and to be able to just turn the page gently and then leave it that way. Don't hold it because the oils of your hand can mess up the paper. And there was a certain sense of reverence instilled in me about this collection. And then, we come to find out that comic books became hugely collectible and valuable depending on their condition and rarity and whatever.
All right.
So when he passed away, his collection was sitting in boxes in the garage. Now, it was mingled with inventory from when he had owned a comic book store.
Okay.
So there ended up being in the neighborhood of, I want to say, like 15,000 individual comic book.
Okay. A sizable amount.
Yeah. It was boxes and boxes and boxes, more than filled the minivan. So in this situation, after he passed, I was not willing and ready to let those things go.
Yeah.
This represented a big experience, formative experience in my life, and a bond that I had with my dad. Now, around this time, I decided I wanted to start collecting comic books again, that I personally would pay for them and buy them myself and take care of them. And that through continuing my experience with these stories and with these characters, that it really felt like a positive continuation of that relationship with my dad.
Okay.
Now, I've done some work curating this collection, and I've gotten separated out the stuff that was just old inventory that wasn't part of the collection. It's just stuff that he had when the store shut down. Ended up getting rid of those things. Now I've whittled it down to just the core collection and kind of taken some steps to stabilize it, and had gotten some of the things graded so that maybe they could put them up for sale and see what they're worth. I've gotten to a point in the last probably 6 months or so in my journey of grieving the loss of my father and my memory of him and that relationship and my relationship with my own kids and all of this stuff. It's very nuanced and it's very entangled. But to be able to stop and say, okay, do I need these boxes of comic books now?
Right.
5 years ago, if they had disappeared, I would have been very upset. I've gotten to be the caretaker of this collection for 5 years, and now I'm at a point where I'm just kind of thinking, it's just stuff. It's cool. I love that I have this relationship with my dad, that we've bonded over this stuff. And honestly, I might want to keep a box or two.
Sure.
But to have several thousand comic books takes up a lot of space. It takes a lot of effort and energy to make sure that they're taken care of, putting each one in an individual sleeve with a backer board and taping it shut and making sure that they're organized and cataloged. And it's a big job.
Right.
And ultimately, in that journey, I needed to emotionally get to that spot to be able to move forward. Now that I'm there, I can say, okay, I don't feel like buying comic books right now.
Right.
The place that I'm at in my life, where I'm at, it's not something that is a way that I want to spend my time. So now, looking at the collection, I can say, I can move on.
Right.
In theory, the stuff has always just been stuff.
It's the emotional value that we put on things. And again, as you stated, you put this large emotional value into these basically pages of newspaper print.
Mm-hmm.
Because it had significant meaning. It reminded you of special times of your father when you were with your father that you spent with your father. But you don't necessarily need to have it physically present in order for you to remember those things and to still cherish those times. It's a good reminder, and having a physical reminder sometimes it's helpful. But if it gets to the point, like you say, well, I have it put away in a box in a closet in my office, and I barely ever touch them anymore or even look at them anymore.
Except to move them out of the way when I need to get to something else in the closet.
So how practical is it for me to hang on to it? That doesn't mean I've changed my feelings towards my father. I still love him and miss him dearly. But I don't need to have a physical representation of something that he did or he owned in order for me to remember that.
And, it can get even more convoluted when the idea of monetary value is included.
Yes.
Because comic books are collectible. What if now we sell it and money comes from it? And now it's like, okay, well, how much is a memory worth? And how much is...
But here's the thing.
It's all entangled. It's not an easy answer.
Yeah, and no one else is going to take your memories or your feelings or your emotions into play when they make you an offer to buy that thing. They don't care less. They can't. Because they've no clue. What they take is, what is someone willing to pay for this?
Right.
Based off of the face value of what the object is. What if your dad collected whistles? And there are all a bunch of different kinds of whistles that he has all over the place, right? And you're like, all right, well, Dad and I used to go out and we used to try all these different whistles out in the park, and sometimes we get a bunch of dogs come in, sometimes we get a duck, sometimes a bird would fly down from the sky, right, with these different whistles. And I remember these, and it's great. And when my dad first passed, it's like, no, these are our whistles. No one's going to touch these whistles. But then now at the end of it, 5 years later, you're like, oh, man, these box of whistles, I don't even use them. I don't want to put my lips on them. I don't even know who was the last person to blow a whistle. I'd blow this whistle. I don't want to touch it. It's just in the way now. I remember the times that I had with my dad, and they were fun, and they were great, and I remember having a great time, but I don't need to hang on to these for that. No one's going to pay me anything. Maybe if I'm lucky, I might on the internet find a whistle enthusiast who's willing to take maybe all of them for $50 if I'm lucky, but I don't know. But again, Nick, it goes back for me. It goes back to and we've talked about this before. When my mom passed in my family, there was a little bit of a back and forth of who should get what. I didn't want anything. I don't put emotional value into things because it's at best it's a reminder of who owned it, but that's it. It itself has no value unless it's something that would have value on its own. a comic book, or maybe it's a gold plate. It's a silver platter that we always put Thanksgiving dinner on, something of that nature that has value in of itself, not because of the emotional attachments that I have placed upon it. If it doesn't have that kind of value, then we don't need it. Years ago, we were doing some spring cleaning in the house, and there was a bowl set of ceramic bowls that we never, ever use. They were still in that same, basically, package. They were taken out of the package, but they still had the plastic around it, right? They were never used.
Literally never used.
Yeah, never. And I got rid of them. I donated them. And my wife lost it. She's like, how could you do that? Your mom gave that to us. And that's how important it was. It sat at the bottom of this cabinet in the very far back, never used, still had its packaging on it, never touched. How important was it really? Well, aren't you upset that your mom gave it to you? Now you gave it away? No, I'm not, because that's not my mom.
Well, and some people have a tendency towards sentimentality more than others.
Sure.
I'm thinking of, well, there's a practical solution for some of these issues.
Yes.
Right? That the idea here being, what is the limitation? What's the real practical, real world, rubber meets the road, brass tacks application here? If we start looking at the hoarder house as the apex example of how bad it can get.
Right.
If you attach value to all of these things that you can't ever let anything go, so you keep all of it forever, can you afford to live that way?
Right.
Can you afford to live, or you get a storage unit to keep all your junk because you have more and more and more, and you can't say goodbye to anything.
And you can rationalize why you still have it. Why do you have this empty Twinkie wrapper sitting over here next to the oven? Oh, that Twinkie wrapper was the one that your dad bought me, the Twinkie at the state fair back in '93. And that's when he was like, we were still kind of dating. And he gave me a special look in the eye when he handed me the Twinkie. It says, a Twinkie for my special someone. I can't get rid of that wrapper. Do you know how much that means to me? Well, when we rationalize it and make it so like it seems like it's the pinnacle of my relationship, well, yeah, if you throw this away, it means you're throwing away my love. But that's irrational.
And it's important to draw that distinction here. However, there's a fine line, I guess is what I'm trying to say, between the stuff and how much of it is reasonable to hang on to.
Mm-hmm.
So, case in point, this is something that we've done with our kids,
Okay.
My wife and I.
Okay.
That we said to the kids, instead of wanting to keep every single drawing that they've ever done ever, we offer them to take a picture of it. And so then, it's digital photography. So the picture of it ends up going on the computer, and honestly, no one ever looks at it again. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But that's a feeling of, okay, it's not totally gone forever. Fair enough. But then you can have the option of, we'll keep it on the fridge for a month or two, maybe, or until you draw another masterpiece that we want to put on the fridge.
Right.
But then we got each kid a file box, the kind of thing that you'd keep like a small amount of personal files in.
Okay.
And it's got a lid and it's got a handle on it and everything. And this box that's the spot for the kids to keep their discretionary objects.
And that's in their closets?
Mm-hmm. And it's got to live in their space, and they get full control over that box. But the realistic limitation on it now is you have this one box. It has a certain amount of physical space in it. Once it's full, it's up to you. You want to add something new and it's full, you need to take something out to be able to put the new thing in.
Yeah.
And so it's the funniest thing. My daughter, she'll get end of the school year, and she'll be cleaning out her backpack, and she'll have just copious amounts of papers just in her binder or whatever that she's kept throughout the year. We're talking like math worksheets and a writing assignment that she did like in 5 minutes. To me, that's not really a necessary thing to hang on to.
Yep.
But for her, that's all of her memories from second grade or whatever. So she's been wanting to keep all of these things. So what we did, this is when we instituted the box. You can keep it in your file box, honey. We'll have a folder. We'll mark it second grade. We'll take all your stuff, put it in that folder in your file box, and that can live in your room. because I'm not going to have it cluttering up the space that we all have to share and live in.
I mean, I have nightmares about I'm in school and I have a backpack full of papers and I'm trying to figure out what's what, and and I end up just throwing it all away. It's all worthless. It's garbage.
This ended up being a great thing, and it's really worked in our family, is to have this file box that, okay, cool. You want to keep it? Go ahead. Make your choice. But your limitation is that physical space of that box.
Yep.
And we're not going to let it explode and take over the whole house because we have other things we want to do with our space. It reminds me of the sticker boards that you see when you look at Cisco. Those sticker boards came from, those are stickers that I collected as a teenager mostly, of stuff that just, I was at a concert and I only had a couple of bucks, but I wanted to get something at the merch table to like remember that concert. Or we took a trip and just decided, I kind of wanted to get that sticker because I thought that was kind of a neat thing. But I'm not going to put it on my car because personal reasons. I don't like stickers on my car.
Right.
They sat in a folder in my mementos box for decades. And then, as you do every couple of years, you kind of stop and like, oh yeah, hey, I have this box. And you look through it and you go, all right, well, what do I got here? Oh yeah, cool. Oh, I remember that concert. That was fun. And then, nowadays I go and look up on Apple Music. Hey, how's that band? What's that? Do they have that album that came out that time? Oh, they do? Oh my gosh. And then I get to relive it and have this nostalgia moment. And then I put it back in the folder and put it back in the closet and don't think about it or look at it for another decade.
I mentioned to you that I have a manila folder where I keep a particular program with a particular's NBA star's signature on it because he went to that school when he was in high school. But I also remembered that I think my high school diploma is in that same thing. And it made me think about when you're looking at jobs and stuff of that nature, they ask you for a copy of your high school diploma. Like, I'm going to be 52. You're lucky if I remember that I would even know where my high school diploma is. Why would I need it?
And there are certain things that matter to keep for a certain time period.
Sure.
Like what? Tax documents you're supposed to keep for 7 years.
7 years. Yep,
okay.
Yep.
That's just because you might get audited for those 7 years.
Yep.
So you got to hang on to them. Anything before that, shred it, get rid of it, get it out of your life. You don't need it. You don't want it. Don't keep it.
My wife has a tendency to hang on to every piece of mail that comes in. So there's like, to the residents of the current, the current owner of this location or of that nature. I'm like, you can just grab those from the mailbox and the trash cans are like right here. You just do that. That's all you need to do. They don't need to come into the house and be stacked on the desk.
It doesn't even have your name on it. Nope.
Yeah.
Well, so I had this idea that I wanted to take those stickers out of the folder and just, okay, this brings me some joy. This was at the end of a, kind of major depressive time for me.
Sure.
And I just decided, I want to see these things. These are things that have happy memories associated with them. I want to use them. If I leave them in the folder, that's going to be something that my kids go through when I die and say, what is this? Throw that away.
Or the opposite, like, I want that because it was Dad's. No, I want it because it was Dad's. Well, you don't even like the Aquabats. What are you talking about? I listen to them all the time.
Sure. And so I decided, for me, I wanted to make these boards, and they fit what I'm going for, and they give me a chance to be able to look at these things. And now it's become a fun little, quest.
Sure.
It's a side quest. Every time we go on a trip or go into a new store, and I'll see oh, hey, they've got stickers. What's something cool I could put on the board that would, give me a little smile when I look at it?
All right.
It's just a decoration now that I get to use.
Yeah.
It's moved out of the realm of stuff I'm hanging on to just because to something that is actively beautifying my life. And eventually it'll get to, okay, this is something that I don't need anymore. And that's okay.
And I think that's an important designation, right? A important realization of is this just a thing that I hang on to because I feel like I need to? Or is this something that's actively part of my life, whether I see it as visual stimuli or it's somewhere else where I can see it on a regular and it provides function and it's so relevant. Okay, yeah, these are the things I want to hang on to because they do play a role in my life. But if it's something that, and again, not to be offensive to anyone, if it was something that somebody else owned, right? If it was a Sears and Roebuck pan, well, Mom used that pan to cook dinner for us all the time. Yeah, because that's what it was designed to do, to cook dinner. They didn't care that it was owned by my mother or someone else's mother. It's just a thing. No, are you going to use it? No, I'm gonna put it in a closet in a box, and it's gonna be pushed away. And maybe if I'm lucky, a spider will might make its web on top of it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not going to have any relevance, and just for the peace of mind that you own it, I don't understand that. It's a weird thing to me. It's like I have a figurine collection, and it's about 900 figurines. But lately, I've been thinking of like I'm not getting the same joy out of having them as I used to. I think I want to sell them. I think I want to take the opportunity, go to one of these toy shows that they have, and then just try to sell them. Take that money for what they're worth and pay off debt and maybe go buy something else for the house, do an improvement on the house or whatever, or put that money away for when I retire because that's not that far away. And that really, honestly, is perfectly fine with me. I got enjoyment out of it as long as I had it. But now that I've had them for a while, some of them for 20 some years, I'm like, I'm all right. I'm all right if I don't have them. I don't have to look at these things to derive happiness for myself.
And there's the thing, is that ultimately, how do we gracefully transition from the state of, I really, really want this thing, and I'm so glad that I'm able to buy it now. This is so great. I have this thing, or someone gave it to me, and it's so cool, to, you know what? I'm ready to say goodbye to this thing because it has served its purpose. I'm glad to have had it. Now, recent years, there's been a thing with Marie Kondo.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because I couldn't remember the name, but
Yeah.
I'm familiar with who this person is.
She's got a series on Netflix. It's really cool. My kids like watching it. It's like the Kondo method or something like that. And basically, the gist of it all, not to steal her thunder or anything, is you can organize your life and your stuff in a certain way of decluttering and organizing and being mindful and thoughtful through every step of the process.
Right.
And the cool thing, I think, is that like the end of all of that, as you've gone through the process of pulling everything out and organizing it and choosing your things, that you can stop and you can, if you need to, you can stop and say to the object, thank you for providing value when I needed you.
Yep.
And recognize that you've moved past that point and that you can pass it along. Whether you sell it or donate it or throw it away because it has no more use for anybody else.
Right.
That you can be mindful in that moment, but it takes reflection to get to that spot. It takes reflection to make that transition.
Right.
From that the ownership to the I'm done.
So I realize that my point of view is subjective. It's unique to me. And there may be people out there that see it the same way that I do. It's a thing. It doesn't have any value besides whatever it was designed to do. But there's obviously some things that are designed to have memories associated with it. Like if it's a jewelry box for your daughter, or it's a particular dress, or it's something of that nature that is designed not only just for what its main purpose is, but it's also designed to be something of a memento. And we have those things in our lives. And so take what I say with a grain of salt, right? Maybe you have something in your life that it really serves no other purpose except to remind you of an event or a person. If that's its intent, if that's its design, and you derive happiness from it, as she states, does this make me happy?
Does it bring me joy?
Yeah,
Is her
does it bring
phrase.
me joy? Then keep it around, and as long as it doesn't become cumbersome to your life, then that's great. But hopefully, if something was to happen to it, that it doesn't also cause you to have a breakdown, right? Knowing it's a thing, yes. It is something that had reverence in the point of it brought up a memory, but you still have that memory if you don't have the thing.
I think another good example of this is clothing, especially for children.
So I just mentioned the dress, right?
Right. So kids are growing up, and as they grow, they outgrow clothing all the time. This is a constant. Their body's getting bigger. They can't wear the smaller thing anymore. Sometimes they can't even fit it over their head anymore. And having this conversation with my kids about, well, it's time. It's another school year, or it's another, milestone, or just, hey, so those pants that you're wearing that show your entire ankle, guess what? You've grown. Isn't that exciting? it's time for new pants.
Where's the flood?
It's time for new pants. Let's get rid of those and we'll replace them with something new. But I like these pants. I know you like the pants. They don't fit you anymore. You've outgrown them. And I think you can see the parallels here with where I'm going on this road.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that meets our needs for a time. It fits us. And then we outgrow it.
Yeah.
There was a time when my home office had a futon in it because my job required me to work nights for like a week out of every month or two. And you'd get on-call pages in the middle of the night, and I was not going to sleep in my bed and have my wife be woken up by the pager going off.
Right.
And I needed something loud and obnoxious to get me out of my slumber. So my office needed to have a place for me to sleep in it, in addition to a workspace.
Yeah.
I don't have that job anymore. I don't need a place to sleep in my office anymore. So I was able to replace that with project space to work on hobbies that I have now, to do things the place that I'm at in my life now.
Right.
There are going to be times in our lives where we've outgrown, for one reason or another, the things that we have previously relied on and cherished.
And we're going to want to hang on to those things for the value that they provided at the time that they were used.
This is where we can take a page from Marie Kondo's book and thank the thing for its use, see if we can sell it to somebody else so that they can get some use out of it and we can maybe get some money back for it. Or if you don't need that money and you don't want to deal with that process, that's okay too.
Yep.
You donate it, and when it's reached the end of its life cycle for you, that you can dispose of it appropriately.
Right. However you see fit. So for me, again, I do see that there are going to be some items and some things in your life that you want to attribute value to beyond whatever it was designed for. I myself personally don't personalize the item to be a representative of the person who owned it. It was something that they had. And I know that if that object had belonged to somebody else, it would still have the same amount of value to me. Is it something that I can use? No? Then I don't need it. It has no value to me. If it's something that I can use, sure. Maybe I'll take it, maybe I want it, but I'm not going to take it because it belonged to a particular person. I think we see that to the nth degree when, like, oh, you know what? I have Prince's handkerchief that he used at the hotel, and he just dabbed the corner of his mouth and then he threw it away. I was so fortunate to be there and to grab it on the floor before the other 100-some people were there, and now I have his DNA to borrow from a TV show. But that's the point I'm trying to make, is that we as people put value into things that it really doesn't have any other value to it except for the purpose that it was designed for. We place value onto things, again, because of who owned it, and we put more value on it if we hold that person in some kind of reverence.
And to the extent that this doesn't interfere in your life, fair enough.
Sure.
Go for it.
Yeah.
But if you're hanging on to, if your every cabinet is filled to the brim with mom's old pans and grandma's old pans and Aunt Sally's old pans, and you just, do you use these pans? Are they serving a purpose? Do you have other things that you can't bring into your kitchen because your cabinets are full of everybody's old heirloom pans?
Or if the object ends up bringing turmoil into your life, right? If there's a big giant fight over so-and-so's object and you're the one that got it because you're the oldest or you're the youngest or whatever.
Or you fought the hardest for it.
Yeah, and you got it. Now everyone resents you because you have this thing. And you're like, I'm going to lord it over you that I got it. Is it valuable for that reason? Maybe.
Well, obviously, it's a status symbol.
Yeah, maybe to you, but in the end, is it worth all the strife and turmoil that you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life, as long as you're alive, as long as you possess that thing? To me, no. I would more likely, you know what? I don't want to be part of this. When my biological father passed, he had a house. And all of the siblings on that side of the family, which are a numerous amount of, okay? Altogether, I think I have 16 brothers and sisters, most of them on that side of the family, and they were all, like, dealing with it, right? They asked me what I wanted. I said, I want absolutely nothing to do with this place. guy was not a father to me. I visited this place maybe a handful of times, and it has no sentimental value to me at all. Now, I know monetarily it has value, but you know what? I don't care. I don't care. You guys do what you need to do. I don't want to be involved with this legally. I don't want to be involved with this emotionally. I don't, because it's not worth it to me. So you do what you need to do. You need me to sign a paper to say I don't want anything to do with this? I will. They gave me the paper. I signed it, and I said, good luck. Let me know how it turns out. Better yet, don't tell me. I don't want to know.
I think what we're trying to say is every now and then it's healthy to stop and reflect on the things that you have. Are they serving their purpose? Or would it be better to move them along?
We all have things that we have gotten in our life that remind us of good times or people that were in our lives that we like to think positively about. But we don't necessarily have to hang on to those things in order to remember them. Our memories are in our head, and we don't store them in the things that we own.
So thanks for joining us on WizNugs. We hope we've led you to reflect a little bit on the things that you're carrying around and if maybe it's time to let some of them go.
And again, thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.